Welcome to Transit Unplugged. I'm Paul Comfort. Each week, we talk with the leaders, the innovators, and the change makers shaping the future of public transportation. As we're headed into the end of our 9th year and the beginning of our 10th year on Transit Unplugged, we decided to go video on you. That's right. We've had some video podcasts with the insiders of me and Julie Gates, and I've been doing the opening as a hybrid video on YouTube and other digital platforms. But we've decided now to try to offer most of our podcasts with a video platform whenever we can, as well as the audio. And I'm so excited that today, on my birthday, June 10th, we're opening up with our first ever video podcast with a guy who I've been wanting to get on the podcast for a year, and that's Marc Molinaro. Marcus Molinaro was the former administrator of the Federal Transit Administration and resigned earlier this year. But today he opens up behind what happens behind the scenes at the FTA. He tells you, as someone who works in public transportation, what they're looking for when you come in with grant requests, et cetera. He talks about the recently passed out Reauthorization Act that passed out of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, what he thinks about that, what he thinks the prospects are for it to pass this year or not. This is going to be a great in-depth interview that you're going to love. We had a great conversation today, and enjoy this deep dive into all things transit with a former administrator, the leader of transit for America, former FTA administrator, Marc Molinaro, on our first ever full video guest podcast. Well, great to finally have Marc Molinaro in the Transit Unplugged podcast studio. Thanks, Marc, for joining us today.
I'm glad to finally be with you.
Yeah, man. Well, this is a great birthday present for me. We're airing this on June 10th, my birthday. I wanted to have you on the podcast the entire time you were the administrator. And for various reasons, the government shut down and all that stuff, we could never make it happen. So Thanks for joining us today.
Well, I'm happy to be with you. Happy birthday. And, I hope it gets better than this.
Yeah. Well, it's a good start, brother.
Good.
While we're talking, I'll be enjoying my birthday in Myrtle Beach, by the way. So,
very nice.
Yeah. So, and you're also our first video guest. We're, we're moving into close to our 10th year of podcasting, and that's the new thing now. Everybody wants to watch on video as well as listen, and so you're our first guest. So, thanks for doing that too.
Happy to do it. I do have to tell you, a long, long time ago when I ran for the village board and then mayor of Tivoli, my grandmother, Yolanda D'Annunzio, was very involved in my campaigns. And one of her friends said to her, well, your grandson is very good looking. And she said, he looks best on the radio.
That's great.
So hopefully they don't mind the video today.
Yeah, that's a good line. I did radio for a long time, and the line was always, you got a face for radio, Paul.
It's fair enough.
But anyway, so what have you been doing in your time since you left being administrator earlier this year?
Yeah, I think most know, I decided to come back home, focus on state and local government again. I come from a part of the state where, frankly, a lot of folks feel overlooked. So I am seeking a seat in the New York State Assembly. It's the lower house of the state legislature, return to do some of the community building and advocacy that I once did. And doing a little consulting work, obviously working with some transit agencies around the country to help, in a couple cases, prepare for big events like the Olympics, but also providing some assistance to the partnership, Pennsylvania Station or Penn Station Transformation Partnership, as we prepared to rebuild Penn Station in New York City. So I'm enjoying both time back at home with my family and still having my hands in the transportation space.
That's great, man. Weren't you, you've got a long history in politics anyway. Weren't you like the youngest mayor or something like that?
I was. Thank you for remembering. It was a long, long time ago. I started in public service a long time ago, interned for my state legislator, decided as a young person to get involved. My hometown, Tivoli, New York, on the Hudson River, was looking for new leadership in a way. And I had a lot of folks encourage me to run. So yes, a long time ago, as an 18-year-old, I ran for the village board in a 4-way race, was elected with the most votes. A year later, the mayor had decided to retire, encouraged me to run, and I decided to run for mayor of Tivoli in 1995 and was elected in 19. So
you were 19 years old. Amazing.
Yeah, I served 12 years as mayor. I tell people, I sort of, a lot of folks have heard these stories, but, serving at that level of government, it's so close and so intense, and it's very personal. So you learn a couple things. One, the decisions you make have real impacts on real people. So government should be paying attention to the human impact of decisions. But also, the saying we had was, and I still use it, is when the roof leaks, it leaks on Republicans and Democrats, and the job of government's just to fix the roof. So fast forward, right? Joining the administration, President Trump gave me an awesome opportunity. Secretary Duffy provided me this great privilege, and these are leaders who just want to fix the damn roof. And so serving at USDOT, kind of allowed me to take all those experiences from little village mayor all the way up to Congress to try to help agencies around the country again, fix the roof and provide services.
Yeah. Hey, so it's not often we get a former FTA administrator on here. I've had a few of them on, but tell us about for people who haven't worked in Washington, what's the FTA administrator actually do day to day, the Federal Transit Administration, and what surprised you most about the job?
Well, first, the job is to advocate for and assist transit agencies and those who rely on them around the country. Of course, we're a funding agency. The FTA moves dollars. Federal taxpayers pay their money into this big, massive government, and our job is to get those dollars back in a way that's efficient and effectively supporting transit, public transportation around the country. Many have heard me say this. I think public transportation, is the circulatory system of our economy. So making sure that those dollars get on the ground effectively, efficiently, important. But the administrator has an awesome number of career and political staff that report to him or her that are monitoring grant distribution, project delivery. And so it could be a massive project, maybe in some degree like Penn Station or some of the work going on out in Los Angeles, or it could be a paratransit being delivered in small communities and sort of regional systems around the country. And through the regional administrators, the regional staff, who really are the arms, eyes, ears, and legs of the FTA, do critical work overseeing the expense of those dollars and making sure agencies meet not only federal law, you're accepting these federal dollars, you're obligated to meet certain federal expectations, but also that the dollars are being spent effectively and efficiently. And then, of course, it's the distribution of new dollars, right? It's the overseeing of grant dollars that get distributed over the course of an administration. Every day, starting at 8 a.m., running till, probably about 8 or 9 p.m., you're getting the input throughout the day, right? So it could be meeting with the other administrators at DOT in the morning, giving sort of a tab on what each agency is doing, highways, rail, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, FAA, making sure that we're all sort of coordinating. But then throughout the day, you're getting input from regional administrators, grants that are being delivered, projects that are underway, and then preparing for the next round of dollars to go out. And then the last, of course, you're the interface between the Federal Transit Administration and then other elected officials like Congress, where we're providing weekly, in some cases daily briefings on projects that are important to them, on meeting certain federal expectations that maybe are adopted through the surface transportation bills, or interfacing with state and local governments who are trying to move projects as well. And so there's it's an intense amount of work. I loved it. I tell people life throws some curveballs. Just at the end of the day, as much as I love the work, I just didn't want to sacrifice more time with my family, and my kids and family shouldn't have had to sacrifice too much more. And so ultimately, I made the decision. It was a painful but necessary one to come back home and focus on family and local service again.
Yeah, well, that's we all have to have our priorities, right? And I think for a lot of us, it's faith first, then family, then our work. And
Yeah.
and so I understand having to make decisions for your family. I live close to DC, and I used to work in DC at WMATA. But if
Yeah.
somebody lives in New York State, that's a long commute, brother.
It is. It is. And we were all willing to make the sacrifice, but it just, at the end of the day, there are some things that came at us that frankly required me to come back home. So, but let
Gotcha.
me also
Yeah.
say, and I mean this sincerely, the folks who work at FTA are phenomenal. They're great career staff, wonderful political appointees, all trying to trying to move people safely and efficiently around the country. And I'm very grateful. And DOT and Secretary Duffy understands the value of the work that the FTA does and the importance in making sure these systems are sustainable, but also safe, efficient, and meeting the needs of communities and excelling, right? Not just maintaining the status quo, but finding ways to improve the delivery of service.
Yeah. So during your time when you were FTA administrator, you had a lot of accomplishments. You were focusing the agency on safety, et cetera. What's one maybe that you're most proud of, or one of the ones you're most proud of that you were able to accomplish?
Well, we had a lot coming at us, and I tell people, so I would say broadly confronting public safety, that the agency isn't just about moving dollars and sustaining sort of the status quo, as I said, and frankly, public transportation is the front porch, if you will, of government for a lot of people, whether it's getting to a doctor's appointment or to and from school or to and from work, or just getting to an event, right? A game or some activity. You're going to a concert. You might for the first time or only time rely on public transportation. If you don't trust it, if you don't feel it's safe, it erodes that, sort of the entire benefit of public transportation, but also sends a shocking message into the community. And so confronting safety in a less than orthodox way, I'm very happy with. I used to tell our friends in agencies and at APTA, right? Our job isn't to be punitive, but it is to be clear that you as agencies need to focus on delivering public transportation in the safest, most efficient way so that we can build the credibility and the support for and the power of public transportation as an economic driver. The other, though, is, we spent a lot of time reforming, and some of those things are going to happen over the course of you're going to see some of the work we did over the course of the next year or two, reforming the capital investment grant program, making sure it's focused on project delivery. And this is the largest discretionary fund in the federal, one of the largest discretionary funds in the federal government, making sure it's focused on project delivery, on cost effectiveness, that we're getting infrastructure and in particular public transit we're making those investments not after communities are built and families grow, but rather as part of building up communities from economic development and transit-oriented development housing. And so that sort of reform focus, I'm very happy about and very grateful to have played a part in it. And then lastly, I would mention, we really did make a priority, and you're seeing it both in the work now FTA is doing, but also in some of the language of the surface transportation reauthorization that the House of Representatives just adopted, or excuse me, the committee just adopted, in the area of accessibility and mobility for those with intellectual, physical, and developmental disabilities.
Let's talk about that for just a second. As you and I talk, the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee just passed out on a major bipartisan vote, 62-2, I think.
Yeah.
Sam Graves' baby that he's been birthing for the last year or so. And this bill, this federal authorization bill. What are your thoughts on that? Were you happy with it? Any thoughts on it?
I have thoughts. I'm happy. First, I mean, I had served on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. Sam Graves puts a high priority on delivering a bill that can actually pass. So it has to be bipartisan. He and Rick Larson invest a lot. There's a lot of push and pull. There's a lot of back and forth. Yes, there's one party in the majority, one in the minority, but they work together. And the bill that they've delivered really does focus on the priorities of the administration, this Congress, and does, in fact, incorporate a lot of the work that the minority members care about, like project delivery, making sure that the dollars getting spent by the federal government are actually getting on the ground to build up infrastructure around the country, safety and security, that the stuff that we do and the investment that we make is focused on providing protection and safety for the riding public, whether they're driving their own cars, taking a train across the country, or using public transportation, and ports and aviation, obviously, as well. So those categories are really invested in by this bill. But I also want to note that the bill does embrace a couple of our security and safety initiatives that we promoted at FTA very specifically, and one that would require a specific set aside formula dollars for accessibility for those with intellectual, developmental, and physical disabilities. It's why I think it's important. The ADA isn't the ceiling; it's the ground floor of accessibility. How systems address paratransit, which I'm engaged in. I want agencies to really think about exploring and expanding the options that they provide individuals with disabilities, so that they're not only reliant on fixed routes or traditional paratransit, but maybe it is also on-demand service and engaged in a way that there's choice available to them. This bill incorporates the very language necessary to expand access for those, in particular, those with intellectual, but also obviously physical and developmental disabilities. Very happy about that. I'm glad it's in the bill, and hopefully, hopefully the House will get it adopted, which will get the Senate to move as well. So I'm very hopeful, very optimistic, but I think it's a good piece of legislation that really does kind of move America forward in a positive way and embraces this golden age of transportation, this golden age of infrastructure that you've heard Duffy and President Trump talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. That's something you and I, share in common, I think, is our passion for paratransit.
Yeah.
As you know, I spent 5 years at WMATA running the paratransit system for them, and it is a key part of what we do. And I like the set aside they had there. What are your thoughts, if you want to share, on the likelihood of this getting through Congress in this session? Because it's getting close to September 30th, and then there's the elections and all that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I guess since I can, I can speak freely,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll speak more as a former congressman than former FTA.
Okay.
I think that Sam and Rick will get it out of the House. I do, and
Okay.
I'm hopeful that that happens before the August break. But there's only so much time left. I do think there's some possibility, more likelihood that this gets done in the lame duck session post election day prior to the new year. But again, let's talk politics. There will be some interest. The Democrats, if they think that they're going to take control of the House or the Senate, they may just want to wait. And so, there's always that pushback. But I do think, in particular, the House bill is bipartisan enough. I mean, we did this with FAA reauthorization when I was at TNI, the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. Bipartisan is bipartisan. And so, whether you're in the majority or the minority, it embraces sort of philosophies that allow for both parties to be successful in presenting, their priorities. I think that to getting this bill done is important. I do think there's a possibility it gets done. Again, I think it's more likely lame duck session than anytime sooner.
Well, that's a good segue to the next question I wanted to ask you about. What gets into bills like that in Washington, D.C.? How do things actually work, the mechanics behind the scene? A lot of us were surprised there weren't more policy initiatives in this reauthorization bill. They had a lot of time for, I think, thousands of comments came in, and they were light on policy changes, I felt like. So did a lot of other people I've talked to. But they came out with a 62-2 vote. So, in order to make it bipartisan and move through, I guess you have to go to these, I don't want to say lowest common denominators, but things that everyone can agree on.
Yeah.
What does it take from your experience as a congressman on TNI and as the FTA administrator? What do maybe CEOs of transit agencies and leaders misunderstand about how Washington FTA really works? What should they understand better?
Well, I think that there's a level of frustration among, sort of legislators that it's like, why don't they just see it this way? And the analogy that I've often used is, imagine being married to 434 other people, and you have to get all of them to agree to it to some degree on something. And that's really, Paul, that's the challenge. And so, a bill like this, you could have revolution, right? There could be massive changes to the language, but you're not going to get the votes to pass it, because obviously for every one person who likes something, there's at least one, if not more, who dislike it. And so I would offer to you that legislation like this gets done through evolution, not revolution. Modest, minor adjustments that incorporate some movement forward. And because it's a 5-year bill, every 5 years, hopefully you're evolving it forward. Yeah, there are times you can lurch, right? I mean, I think to some degree you'd argue, the IJA, the bill under President Biden, was a lurch. And again, I think it was way too much money. I think it actually inflated. It forced inflation, which meant the dollars we were putting on the ground ultimately were not going to get spent in an effective way. That's me as more conservative thinking. But again, you don't often get that. You mostly get evolution. This is an evolutionary bill. But again, I would point to some really important things that do move the needle. I mean, in aviation space, there's remarkable advancement to some degree. This is surface transportation, but there's project delivery focus, trying to make it a little bit easier to move projects forward. There's sort of streamlining of some of the grant opportunities. For us at transit, right, there's these set-asides for safety, security, and accessibility, very important. And by the way, I'd offer, clarity. There's language in here, clarity on on-demand service and the use of, in essence, on-demand taxi service for the purposes of paratransit. And I think that clarity is important. And I do want to take this opportunity to say, right, at the end of the Biden administration, there was this language that was put out there in December 24 that would have limited. That language was never implemented or enforced. And then ultimately, when President Trump comes into office, he issued an executive order that rescinded all those executive orders. And so clarity in this particular bill that provides that sort of all of the above approach for paratransit and those with disabilities, that's an important evolutionary step. But I acknowledge, again, going back to that analogy, imagine having to get 51% of 434 other people to agree with you. We all have opinions. And so navigating that process generally leads to modest adjustments, not sweeping change.
That's right. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask Mark, When transit agencies come to Washington asking for funding or support, what separates the agencies that get traction from the ones that don't? With Marc Molinaro, former FTA administrator, on Transit Unplugged.
Thanks for listening to the Transit Unplugged podcast. We are so glad you're here. If you're enjoying this show, we know you'll love our other transit industry programs. On Transit Unplugged TV, Paul Comfort explores the food, culture, and transit systems around the globe. You get to see everything. You'll love this show. And every week, we also offer up the Transit Unplugged News Minute, where you can get the latest industry headlines in less than 60 seconds. You can find out more at transitunplugged.com. Now back to Paul Comfort for this edition of the award-winning Transit Unplugged podcast.
We're back with Marc Molinaro, former FTA administrator and now a consultant in the industry and running for office back in his home state of New York. And before we left, Marc, we're talking about what got into the recent House Reauthorization bill. But I wanted to ask you this as a follow-up to that, kind of a corollary. You said about SIG grants are one of the largest, funding sources that can be discretionary, et cetera. So when transit agencies come to Washington and they want to get, their project funded, or they want some specific support on something, what separates in your mind the agencies that, get traction and those that don't?
Stop doing the same thing over and over again. I used to say this, and some of my colleagues would hate that I sort of let folks under the hood. Don't give me, whether it's a member of Congress or the administration, the same leave behind, that one page that you gave us last year plus a bullet, because I could tell you that there's no need to read it. I know what you said last year. I know what you're going to say next year. Give us stories. Tell us the tale of why this legislation, why this grant is going to change some particular outcome. And I use it. Some of the others don't like when I use it, but Austin, Texas, the mayor showed up. Their partner agencies come in. They tell the tale of how this transit investment is going to alter the economic direction of the city. How will jobs be created? What kind of private investment will come with it? What new housing gets developed? And they show it in a very, I don't want to be simple, but they show it in a graphic way, an optical way. I used to joke, elected officials, we're simple creatures. You got to give us something to get excited about. Give us the stories of how this investment, this policy will change something. Austin did that well when I was there. Boston does that well. LA did that well. And there are others. But I just would say to folks, what gets attention is doing it a little bit differently. When you send us a form letter, I only have to read one. The other 15,000 are the same letter. I don't have to read it again. But if you change the tale a little bit, you give us some personal connection, you explain why my vote or my investment will produce some great outcome, you end up moving the needle a little bit more than you would otherwise.
That's great. Thank you for that. That's great insight. Pulling the curtain back a little bit.
Lobbyists don't like when I say that because it's like they have to change it up a little bit. But I do think it's very important. I just do. And members of Congress, just as an aside, right? Members of Congress, they're doing 15 or 20-minute meetings, one after another, after another, after another. You have to be the one they remember that day. And just one more, here's a piece of paper, here's some bullets, isn't going to do it. I assure you. Figure out ways to make those connections.
That's great. Thank you. It's very helpful. So there's obviously so much great things happening in public transportation, but there's also concern in many agencies about various things. I mean, as we're recording this, TriMet just announced that they were probably going to have to lay off hundreds of people at their agency in Portland because there is this looming fiscal cliff. That money you talked about from the IIJA, a lot of it is dried up now. Most of it is dried up. And so agencies that were relying on that to fund part of their operations have reached the end of that. And sometimes their local governments or state governments aren't able to step up and help. And so there's a fiscal cliff, there's ridership recovery, there's still some workforce shortages, public safety perceptions, technology, AI coming in. Behind the scenes in Washington, what are the concerns that people are worried about, policymakers, when it comes to public transportation?
I think you just listed them. I mean, we had the
what are they saying about them then?
What they say about us more important. I say this with the greatest degree of success, of respect. The fiscal cliff was created mostly by agencies and governments that took a one-time check to plug ongoing expense. When you do that, when you take a one-time revenue to plug reoccurring costs, you will end up with a cliff and likely a compounding one. There's little desire, in fact, very little desire in the administration to come up with ways to fix that. And so what I said to agencies and would continue to say to agencies is, you must be more creative. I understand in some, I mean, sadly, right, we don't want that to result in laying off employees. What we want are for agencies to consider new technology, AI as a tool, greater efficiencies, consider the way you're providing paratransit or some high cost component of the work you do, and use other partners out in the space to see if you can drive down costs. And there are great examples around the country where public-private partnerships, again, not at the risk of losing employees, but public-private partnerships have amplified the work of public transit and driven down some costs to produce greater efficiencies. And I would encourage, again, in the space of transportation for those with disabilities, medical-related transportation, there's a lot of private partnerships that make a lot of sense, would cost a lot less, and probably enhance service. And I encourage agencies to consider that. But, again, a safety security top priority of this administration. Every administration says it, but you see it being played out. Make sure that you're in tune and on top of responding to incidents. Have a greater degree of radar when those things happen. And we worry about that at the federal level, and agencies I know worry about it, but they have to be more creative and different as to how they confront it. And then lastly, the deployment of technology. We both have said AI, but whether it's automated vehicles or the use of AI to enhance efficiencies in service, all of that are ways to drive down cost, but obviously a major investment and innovation that needs to somehow be integrated into public transportation systems more successfully. And I'll say to you as the former administrator and as observer, right, some of the larger agencies may have the resources to make those investments, but they're very bureaucratic, in which case they don't get made as effectively and efficiently. Some of the smaller agencies may think they don't have the dollars to do it, but frankly, if they made a small investment, it might get an amplified and enhanced service. And so, I would say to the medium and smaller agencies, don't think you can't do those things and actually produce a much better outcome. And to the larger agencies, I say keep doing those things, but find greater ways to address efficiency. But again, in this administration, safety, security, and the delivery of projects on time, on budget, extremely important.
That's good. When you were out, I know because you did a lot of traveling and visited agencies and tried to be in touch with what's happening on the ground, was there any particular agency, CEO, or project somewhere in America that really impressed you that you still think about, like, yeah, that was a great visit? Like I just went to Salt Lake City and visited them and saw what they were doing there with Jay Fox. I was so impressed with them. That's something that has stuck with me for several months. Any agency like that in your mind or project?
Well, I'm going, as I love all my children equally. And so now that I'm out of the FTA, I'm still not going to tell you who I like the best or who I think is the best. But what I will tell you is there's really good examples. You mentioned Salt Lake City. I would mention Salt Lake City. And by the way, the surrounding service providers. And I use them as an example there because they have a very unique dynamic, right? Massive tourism economy, high housing costs. People have to come in from way outside to go to work. In some cases, they're creating housing to have transit workers live in and around the system. Really, really cool and interesting stuff. Folks like in Boston and in Austin focused on transit-oriented development, really creative ways of using federal and local investment to generate private dollars and capture those dollars into the system. Good examples. I don't want to get into all of them, but they're good examples down in Florida where they're kind of doing the same. I do want to acknowledge the FIFA and the game hosts, whether it's LA 28 in the case Stephanie and LA Metro. Those systems are all being exceptionally creative and much more aggressive in trying to provide service in the context of these massive scale events, and they all are being very, very creative. So I would give a hat tip in particular to LA. I am providing a little bit of assistance to them, but I would give a hat tip to LA. Stephanie who does a wonderful job there. So I don't want to go down the list, but big and small, there are some really cool examples of agencies that are doing great work. The only thing I would offer to, and this might be to advice as much as a sort of a hint as to the ones that do well, the agencies that are coordinating with their city or local governments are much stronger than the ones that sort of function slightly independently. And there would be some who are saying, oh, we're all integrated. You're not all integrated equally. Having some buy-in from your mayor or your supervisor, your parish or county commissioner, having them understand the value of public transportation and the decisions being made collaboratively. Economic development drives transit. Transit drives economic development. Being sure that there's that integration, like real serious integration, the ones that are doing the best are the ones where that exists.
That's good. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
So I had a question on modal choice. I've seen amazing light rail systems. Like I used to be the CEO of Baltimore. We had a pretty good light rail system. But man, when I went out to Tucson and saw what they're doing out there with their light rail and the billions of dollars of TOD that's happened as a result of that, it's amazing. However, in the last couple of years, I've really noticed a modal shift in the priorities of agencies moving toward bus rapid transit.
Yeah.
Because BRT is, quicker and easier to finance and easier to move versus light rail. And I noticed the administration, a lot of the money that's going to new projects or BRT. What's your thoughts on that? What was happening there in our industry?
Well, there is a shift both in the administration and in the agency. So, I mean, I think if you're trying to track the dollars on the administration side, certainly BRT. But BRTs that don't reduce traffic lanes are going to be more competitive than those that do. Keep that in mind, right? So there's actually a good couple of good examples in the Salt Lake and Park City region where they're actually building out additional lanes. But they have the space to do it. I mean, they can achieve that.
Right.
And so we the administration has shifted its focus. BRT, it's cheaper to move massive projects. I mean, certainly bus rapid transit is a less expensive than light rail, and you can get projects moving, and you are in a more creative way connecting rural, suburban, and urban, right? And so that's the key. And I don't want to put words in the administration's mouth, but I think you knew when I was there, and certainly you see it now. How do we build out this connection of service in rural and suburban areas? Bus rapid transit achieves that. And so there is that shift. The only thing I will say though is, and so I'll throw a bone certainly to light rail. The benefit of light rail is what you just described. I mean, you can move a heck of a lot more people in a much more efficient way. But light rail does drive economic development more than any other of the transit options, right? I mean, subways certainly, but whether a light rail, whether it's above ground or below ground. But that does drive economic growth much more effectively than anything else. And so while you do want to chase the dollars, I get that, and you want to be obviously in line with the administration's priorities, I do think that there's value, and this is advice I'd offer, right? At least contemplate and do the math. $1 billion worth of light rail produces how many billions of dollars? Not theoretical, but if you can point to actual housing development, actual manufacturing or retail or some job creator that is going to come along with that kind of investment and those relationships exist, then you should at least evaluate that. Because light rail will drive economic opportunity. If you can prove it and you can show it and you can show that there's real bricks going to be built, then it's at least worth considering and making the argument for.
That's great. One more modal question, and then I'll ask you about what you see as the future of public transportation, and that is intercity rail. We see with Brightline down in Florida, we see the project, another private project going on out in from outside of LA to Vegas, and then the renaissance of Amtrak, which I've been so excited about over the last few years. And I know you said you're involved in the Penn Station project. Comment on that and where you think we're going. Will we ever see high speed? Now I know that the Vegas project with with Brightline is supposed to be 220 miles per hour, so that'll be true high speed rail. But what are your thoughts on all that on the rail side of things?
Well, there is, I mean, to a degree, a sort of a renaissance. There's also, obviously some risk associated, and that is, make sure your business model actually works, and that's some of the concern, obviously, the administration has had. But I'd offer you that connectivity is critically important, right? And so, I do think that you'll continue to see advancements of those projects. But we just talked about, though, there's not going to be as many dollars on the ground, and so federal dollars aren't going to go as far, right? Although I would again argue the IJ dollars didn't go far because of the cost of things, but you won't have the same access to some of those federal dollars to make those kind of investments. So how do you make the public-private partnership work in a way that is sustainable and successful? I do want to also join you in acknowledging the work of Amtrak. David Fink, who's the FRA administrator, has put a high priority on getting projects done and sort of prioritizing, making sure the Amtrak actually functions more like a business, and that business is about moving people and moving the economy. And so there is a real focus there. Secretary Duffy has made this a priority. I don't have an answer on sort of widespread high speed. And listen, I think it's wonderful. The more we can move the technology, the more we can advance the new Excella cars that Amtrak's deploying. Very, very important. But we also are uniquely different in America, and it's kind of hard for folks to entirely embrace, right? We're a decentralized government. In some countries around the world, transit and train travel is actually administered by one government, the national government, and there aren't cities, towns, villages, all these old local agencies to have to contend with. And we're a car-driven economy. Like it or not, Americans like to be in their car, getting off on the exit as they wish, and building out high-speed rail in and around a highway infrastructure is a bit more complicated. The last I'll say, and this is a New York example, there's always been this desire to do a high-speed rail from upstate to downstate along the Hudson River. And as I've reminded many, many people, that's a wonderful idea if you don't actually care about the Hudson River. In other words, we have environmental policies and natural resources that in some ways have been very sophisticated in how we preserve, and how you build around that today is much more complicated than maybe that people appreciate. But again, I see the investment, I see the value of the investment, and I think you're going to continue to see some advancement in that space.
That's great. Well, in wrapping things up, Mark, I always like to look to the future. And when I talk to leaders and what gives them hope, I mean, you always impressed me in the times I met you or heard you speak at APTA or whatever, or met in your conference room with you and your staff. You're always very hopeful. You always gave a positive vision of the future, which I love. What gives you hope about the future of public transportation in America?
Well, infrastructure is destiny. And so if we can't move people, can't move products, we don't sustain our country, we don't sustain our communities. And so I remain very, very optimistic. What I would offer is sort of, what to keep an eye on along the horizon is automated vehicles, so AV and AI technology, and how we can make some transition in a way that doesn't disrupt our labor force, right? So how do we create the path forward so that those men and women who rely on these jobs can continue to get that paycheck? But the technology is here. The technology is going to expand, and how we deploy it in public transportation is very, very important. Again, sort of the micro transit component. This isn't first, last mile. This is actually saying that some people want to get on a little car, maybe AV, maybe in a lane or some sort of, I wouldn't say monorail, although potentially, but a lane that maybe is adjacent to a highway or maybe intersects park space. How do you deploy that technology in a way that connects job centers and hospitals and schools and academic settings to people that need to get to and from there? How do you use that technology, this microtransit technology, in a way that enhances public transportation? I think is a space. And then again, I get back to this the partnership with the private sector. Just because we've done some things the same way over and over again doesn't mean we need to continue. And I really challenge agencies to look inward. I know that changing the way you deliver services at times is frustrating and it causes a lot of angst. But again, infrastructure is destiny. Public transportation is a circulatory system of our economy, and we have to find new ways to broaden, expand, and enhance it. And so private partnerships on microtransit, private on-demand service, and embracing innovation, I think is really important. But that's where we're headed. And we're headed, I'm going too long, but I do want to, when I served on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, I stumbled into advanced aviation as a technology.
Oh, yeah.
This is not something I knew about entirely, but I sort of fell in love with this concept of using these smaller vehicles, individual flying vehicles. Some are electric, some are vertical takeoff, some are automated. How do we use that as a tool to connect big major airports with regional hubs, with general aviation airports, and use it as a means of moving people around? You could see a public transportation system that includes that kind of micro transportation, that advanced transportation, both on the ground, as I said, but also connects it to aviation, AAM, advanced aviation as well. And so that's where we're headed. Embrace it, deploy it, and find ways to meet people where they are so that we can move them to where they need to be.
That's great. Marc Molinaro, thank you so much for being our guest today, and thank you for your service to our nation, both in Congress and as the administrator of the Federal Transit Administration. We wish you all the best and everything you've got coming up in the next chapter of your career.
Thank you, and happy birthday.
Thanks, buddy. What a great conversation with Marc Molinaro. What stood out to me was his willingness to kind of share really behind the scenes of what happens when decisions are made in public transportation. He pointed out that the CIG program the grant program that the FTA administers, is really one of the largest discretionary grant funds that operates out of the federal government. And he talked today about how to make your case when you go to Washington for the project you want to get funded. And he gave examples like Austin, Texas, and Boston, and talked about how you got to tell the story and not just put some bullet points out on a sheet of paper. I also appreciated his insight into reauthorization, the bill that just came out of the House T&I committee. And he discussed, why he thought it wasn't super heavy on policy initiatives. That's how you get a 62-2 vote, a bipartisan measure that hopefully will get through the House. He talked about what he really thought the prospects were for it to pass. And he said he thought that the best chances for it to happen, to be completed through the House and Senate, would be in a session that occurs after the election. I also appreciated his willingness to talk about bus rapid transit versus light rail and how this administration is leaning into BRT, especially when it doesn't take away travel lanes. And then our final conversation on the future of public transportation, his thoughts about the initiatives that are going on now with air travel, with high-speed rail, with intercity rail, and even with paratransit and microtransit, his thoughts on that. So this was a great overall discussion about what's happening in public transportation now, some about what he's been doing since he left, and a look to the future with a guy that really was generally accepted as a really good FTA administrator in the short time he served. Thanks for being with us today on this episode of Transit Unplugged. And until next time, let's listen, learn, and lead. Because when we learn from each other, we build better transit together.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Transit Unplugged, the world's #1 transit executive podcast. I'm Julie Gates, executive producer of the podcast. Many thanks to the team that makes this show happen. Host and producer Paul Comfort, producer Chris O'Keefe, editor Patrick Emile, associate producer Cindy Raskin. Transit Unplugged is being brought to you by Modaxo, passionate about moving the world's people. If you would enjoy behind-the-scenes insights and updates from the show, sign up for our weekly newsletter, which has links to can't-miss conversations with the biggest names in mobility. Head to transitunplugged.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Transit Unplugged.